Welcome back to this week's Shatterproof speaker series. We're gearing up for this weekend's Stronger Than Addiction Challenge, and as a means of staying connected with our community, we have created this speaker series. On behalf of Shatterproof, my name is Renee Barros, and here with me today is Senior Content Manager for Sesame Workshop's U.S. Social Impact Group, Kama Einhorn. Kama develops multimedia outreach materials for children, parents, and providers. Prior to joining the workshop, she wrote and edited early childhood teaching resources for Scholastic. She holds a master's degree in education from the University of California at Berkeley. Welcome, Kama.
Thanks so much for having me, Renee, and to the whole Shatterproof team. We're thrilled to be here.
Kama, I am so excited you are here today. Prior to coming to work at Shatterproof, I obtained my master's degree in elementary education as well. And I grew up on Sesame Street. Now I work in the addiction space, and I'm a parent to little ones who watch Sesame Street. So this is so close to my heart. So thank you again for being here and taking some time to chat with us. But enough about me. Tell me about yourself. Where do you come from? What has been your career path? And how did you end up at Sesame Street?
It's a great question. I'm very lucky to have ended up on Sesame Street doing this work for vulnerable communities. I started as an editor of educational materials at Scholastic after being a classroom teacher for some time, K-8, and wound up in my dream job at Sesame Workshop. And what I love about it is that we're creating really impactful content for the kids who need it the most, at the time in their lives they need it the most. And to see that impact and to see just reaching the life of individual children and parents is incredibly rewarding.
So as I understand it, you helped create the content for Carly's character?
I did. And we start every tough topic with an advisory board. So we were not experts in any of the tough topics that we cover. You know, we've covered autism, parental incarceration, grief, you know, a variety of adverse childhood experiences. So we assemble an advisory board of experts in the field who give us the state of the field, what's missing, what children and parents and providers need. And then we assemble all of that downloaded wisdom into, we sesamatize it, what we call it. And we
Sesamatize, I love that.
Right? How do we use the Muppets? You know, how can we leverage the Muppet power? Because the Muppets, as we know, have such power to reach the hearts and minds of children and adults. So we create content based on these recommendations from experts, but we do it in the Sesame way, positioned for kids and families watching this type of media in these formats. So we come away with a curriculum outline and very specific messages for children. So for instance, in this initiative, one of the messages was, you're not alone, right? Very simple, very kid-friendly, and will certainly apply to any child struggling with a traumatic experience. In this case, the substance abuse struggle of a parent.
So Carly is one of the Muppets, and she has a parent that has substance use disorder. Why did Sesame Street choose to include Carly's character on the show?
Yeah, for all of our tough topics, we often, not always, have what we call an ambassador Muppet who can really represent the child's perspective, because Sesame is so much about seeing the world through a child's eyes, of course. So we needed a Muppet who could do this job, and she needed to have a specific story. So instead of adding a story to an existing character, you know, like Elmo or Big Bird, we created this lime green girl, this lovable lime green girl, to specifically speak to children facing the same issue as her. Of course, it helps children to see someone in their position. It helps to see a Muppet or, you know, an animal character we often see in children's books. Kids relate to creatures, right, that aren't necessarily human. So we needed children to see themselves reflected in her, but in a really playful, kid-like way. So we were able to develop her based on a rough story outline, which is that her mom has struggled with addiction, and she has been through a 90-day rehab program and is now back together with Carly and rebuilding a lot of trust and helping Carly work through these big feelings that she's having.
So just out of curiosity, why was it important to introduce a new character rather than
Yeah,
apply
we
this
really
to an
wanted to
existing
give the issue its due, and we wanted to have one Muppet that children could relate in a new and special way to. That we could really hone these messages, be really explicit, and not add what would be a complicated backstory for any existing Muppet. We wanted a Muppet to really define this issue explicitly in the way that it needed to be. So for kids to see themselves in this particular Muppet and have a particular attachment to her is really new and fresh. We've done it for other initiatives. For instance, we developed a Muppet with autism, Julia, who's become really popular. And we have a character, Lily, who's represented food insecurity. And we have a character, Alex, who's represented the child's experience of parental incarceration. We have a Muppet whose family has experienced homelessness. And we find that having this sort of spokesperson for the issue is really effective.
So how do the other Muppets help tell the story?
Well, they model being a really supportive friend, for one. They also model the child's experience of learning about the thing. So Elmo has a conversation. In one of our videos, Elmo has a conversation with his daddy about addiction. They're talking about his friend Carly. Carly's not on screen, but Elmo asks his dad, "What's addiction?" And he notices in a very kid-appropriate way that Carly's mom has come back, that she seems much happier. He knew that she was having a hard time. He knew that his friend Carly was having a hard time. So he's the learner, right? We have an adult Muppet explaining to him. And he's also, because he knows something about the issue now, he's able to be a really supportive friend. He's able to listen, to offer hugs. All the Muppets have this job to do in being a member of their Sesame Street community. So we really want to model good friendships, supportive communities, empathy, all the things that we try to teach all children, we want to have all the Muppets model. So in this way, they're surrounding Carly with this circle of care and support, and she can absorb this message that she's not alone.
I love it. And Elmo just does what Elmo does best. He loves everybody, right?
Exactly.
So when you're developing these characters, whether it be for Sesame Street or for one of your books, do you base them off of real people, or how do you come up with the content for the character?
Not always. Sometimes it depends on the issue. A lot of times one of the staff members will have an experience either personally or with a friend or loved one that makes its way into the bio, right? The backstory, which all the details don't always come through in what we create. But we have in mind, just like actors when they have developed a detailed backstory and they know their motivations and, the viewer doesn't always see these details. I was a member of a team that developed Carly, and I did have a particular friend in mind who experienced this. She had also been in foster care for this reason, because we know that there's this unfortunate overlap between foster care and substance abuse. So we have a separate initiative on foster care, and Carly is the ambassador for that topic as well. So the friend I had in mind had experienced both. That's not super explicit. The details of her life aren't super explicit in Carly's character, but I think we all, like any creators, we all bring some of our own experience to the development of this fictional character.
Sure, and how could you not?
Right.
So anyone who's a parent knows we often learn so much from our kids, right? Do you have little ones?
No, I don't.
Okay. It is so great to see Sesame Street teaching kids about addiction at such a young age. I believe that kids are so resilient and accepting, especially when they're being educated on the topic at such a young age. Do you think parents, grandparents, and caregivers may be learning something too? And is that intentional when you choose different causes to align with?
Yeah, that's absolutely our aim. So a lot of our materials are kid-facing and a lot of them are adult-facing. And when we say adult-facing, we mean parents themselves, any other caregivers, grandparents, extended family, as well as providers. So anybody in a professional capacity who's serving children and families. So we have different formats for the different audiences. The providers might have a webinar on using the materials. The parents might have articles on the site, which is sesamestreetandcommunities.org. They might have booklets, information booklets. We'll have printable pages for the children. I mean, really what's sort of out in front is the videos, right? And that's how we meet Carly. But there's all sorts of supporting materials that will reach the adults in kids' lives and help them, help them offer support to their children, but also offer support to them directly. So we do hope to speak to parents, inspire them to make a big difference in their children's lives and how they cope with this issue. And in that way, it's a dual audience. And many parents simply watch Sesame Street with their children. And I think that everybody who watches absorbs something.
Whether they realize it or not, right?
Even if it's some language that helps them explain a certain issue to a child, a complicated issue. If we can give them a few sentences on what is addiction, how do you explain to a 4-year-old what addiction is, then they can hear it and they can watch it and maybe they'll use that language themselves.
Kind of on the same topic, it's hard for a lot of adults to really wrap their mind around addiction and understand it. Do you believe that by Sesame Street talking about this topic, it will help tomorrow's adults who are kids now understand it better and have less stigma around it?
We really, really hope so. And reducing stigma was one of our main goals. We believe that, to tame it, you name it, right? And if we can give children the language and help them understand what it is. We found in focus testing that a lot of children were afraid that they would grow up with the same problem because when it was explained to them that addiction is a sickness, they thought that they might grow up with the same sickness. And in a lot of our materials, we explain to them that we can take care of ourselves, that by growing up, knowing how to talk about our feelings, name them, ask for help when you need it, express our feelings in different ways, and take care of ourselves physically, right? Sleep well, eat well, move around every day, and do things you love every day. You're building yourself and you're building resilience. And the base of resilience is what they can bring to their young adulthood, to their adulthood, and will make them much less likely to face addiction themselves, even when they've grown up with adults who have struggled.
Oh, I love that. I love that you said, when you name it, you tame it. That is one of our biggest goals at Shatterproof here is to lessen the stigma, because then once we really start to chop that down, then we can really do the work that we need to do. Yeah. So I love that.
One of our messages to kids and adults is it's brave to ask for help. It's an act of strength and it can make a family better. And lessening that stigma is something that we hope can help everybody look at it and get well.
I love it. Well, you have some great resources on your website. I love the video about Celia and her family. When you really start looking at what treatment and recovery from substance use disorder looks like, it really is applicable to anyone, right? I love how Celia learns some techniques through her parents' recovery and then teaches her friends how to meditate. She uses art as a form of expression and talks with other kids about what she has dealt with. These are all healthy coping mechanisms that anyone can employ. And I'm so happy to see our youth learning them. Where can parents find resources to help their little ones who may be impacted by addiction?
That's a great question. So for all of our initiatives, we usually have a printable page with a list of national resources. Often they're clearinghouses that will direct people to local resources. So our job is really to encourage parents to reach out. Rather than give them specific organizations, we can direct them to supportive organizations that will get them to the right place, that will get them the care that they need.
Everything has changed in 2020. Can you tell us a little bit more about how COVID has affected the production of Sesame Street?
Great question. It is a moving target. and our production team is constantly finding new ways to create fresh content. You may have seen a lot of our work up in a Zoom style format, where we have the Muppets basically filming themselves at home with backdrops that are
like this one. Amazing backdrop, by the way.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's very helpful to be on location. I wish I was on location. So we're still in full production, following all the recommended guidelines about how many people on a team. But we've been involved in some really great video productions like this one, and we've been able to make them look Sesame and to really have the Muppets right there with the children. And we found that what children really want is time with the Muppets. It's not necessarily the involved production values, or the really, the bells and whistles, which of course we need and love. And in an ideal world, we have all the time, because drawing kids to the work is our goal. But we found that Elmo offering messages of comfort, his big face right on the screen, right there with kids, talking directly to the kids, all the Muppets doing that, has been really powerful and a really interesting challenge and opportunity for all of the creators to make our work, still really sing, still really reach kids directly. And we found that on social media, which is where you'll find most of it, that the response has been overwhelming. The reach has been really terrific, and it means a lot to kids. Often there are daily messages from Muppets.
Kama, thank you so much for being here today. It has been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you to you and the folks at Sesame Street for the work you're doing to help us reverse the addiction crisis.
Oh, thank you and your entire team. You are the ones on the front lines, and it's an honor for all of us to create content that support you in your work and your journeys.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Take good care.